The Greyhound's engine hums its familiar lullaby as I navigate through the midnight corridor of Interstate 40. 23 years behind this wheel, and I've learned that the night shift isn't just a job, it's a front row seat to humanity's rawest moments. People don't board buses at midnight because they're living their best lives. They board because something's broken, something's ending, or something needs to be left behind in the rearview mirror. My passengers tonight are the usual suspects. A young soldier heading to his next deployment, earbuds drowning out whatever demons chase him. An elderly woman clutching a purse like it contains the crown jewels, probably visiting a sick relative she hasn't spoken to in years. 3 college kids sharing gas station energy drinks and acting like this adventure is the best thing that ever happened to them. They'll learn. Life has a way of teaching lessons you never signed up for. The bus station in Tucson was nearly empty when we pulled in at 11:47 p.m. Just another forgotten way station in America's circulatory system, where dreams go to catch connecting flights to disappointment. I've seen it all from this driver's seat. Runaways thinking they're heading toward freedom when they're really just running toward different problems. Business travelers who've convinced themselves that the next city holds the key to fixing whatever's rotting in their lives. And the heartbroken ones who believe geography can heal what human cruelty has carved out of their souls. That's when she appeared. She didn't walk to the bus. She drifted, like smoke, following an invisible current. Even from my elevated position, I could see something was different about her. Not the usual broken but trying to look strong posture I'm used to. This woman moved like she was carrying something sacred, something that demanded reverence with each step. She was maybe 35, with auburn hair that caught the harsh fluorescent lights of the station and turned them into something softer. Her coat was navy blue, expensive looking, but wrinkled, like she'd been wearing it for days. But it was her hands that got my attention. She held a small wooden box against her chest, cradled like you'd hold a sleeping child or a dying bird. The box itself was unremarkable. Dark wood, maybe mahogany, about the size of a shoebox, but half as tall. No visible hinges, no obvious way to open it, but the way she held it suggested it contained the weight of the world, or at least her world. She climbed the steps slowly, paying her fare with exact change counted out in advance. Her eyes met mine for just a moment, and I saw something there I'd learned to recognize after 2 decades of looking into desperate faces, the look of someone who's made a decision they can't unmake. "Evening," I said, keeping my voice neutral. "In this business, you learn when to talk and when to shut up." This felt like a shut-up moment. She nodded, clutched the box tighter, and made her way toward the back of the bus. Not the very back. That's where people go when they want to disappear entirely. She chose a seat about 2/3 back, window side, where she could see out but still maintain some connection to the world of the living. As I pulled away from the station and merged back onto the interstate, I caught glimpses of her in my rearview mirror. She'd positioned the box on her lap and was staring out the window but not seeing the desert landscape rolling by. She was seeing something else entirely, something playing out behind her eyes like a movie only she could watch. The highway stretched ahead like a black ribbon, dotted with the occasional truck stop or gas station, islands of neon, and an ocean of darkness. This is the America most people never see, the in-between spaces where real life happens while everyone else is asleep. Out here, pretense falls away. Out here, people become who they really are. I've driven this route 800 times, maybe more. Phoenix to Albuquerque, Albuquerque to Amarillo, Amarillo to Oklahoma City. The same stops, the same rest areas, the same view of America's middle turning in its sleep. But tonight felt different. Tonight, that wooden box in seat 23B was changing the gravity of everything. 20 minutes out of Tucson, she stood up. Not to use the restroom, not to stretch her legs. She walked deliberately to the front of the bus, box still cradled in her arms, and stopped beside my seat. "Excuse me," she said, and her voice carried the kind of quiet strength that comes from having cried until there are no tears left. "I need to ask you something." I glanced at her reflection in the windshield, keeping most of my attention on the road. "What can I do for you?" She hesitated, and in that pause, I heard the weight of whatever decision had brought her here. "When I get off this bus, I'm going to leave this box with you. There's an address written on the bottom. I need you to make sure it gets there." Now, I've had people ask me to do a lot of things over the years. Mail letters they couldn't send themselves, deliver messages to people they couldn't face, even hold on to wedding rings while they decided whether to take them back to cheating spouses. But something about the way she asked, not desperate, not pleading, just matter of fact, made me pay attention. "Ma'am, I'm not sure that's—" "Please." She shifted the box and I caught a whiff of something, old wood, maybe cedar, with undertones of something else. Perfume? Sadness? Hard to tell. "Don't open it until I'm gone. Just promise me you'll make sure it gets where it needs to go." I've learned to spot trouble from a mile away, and this felt like trouble wrapped in good intentions. But there was something in her voice, something in the way she held that box like it contained the last piece of someone's soul. "Where are you getting off?" I asked. "Flagstaff. Still 3 hours away." 3 hours to figure out what I was getting myself into, or 3 hours to talk myself out of it. I'll think about it, I said, which we both knew meant yes. She nodded, understanding the unspoken language of people who make their living in the spaces between destinations. Thank you. She returned to her seat, and I watched in the mirror as she resumed her vigil at the window. The box remained in her lap, and her hands remained protective around it, like she was keeping something from escaping or keeping the world from getting in. The night rolled on, punctuated by the rhythm of tires on asphalt and the soft conversations of passengers who couldn't sleep. But my attention kept drifting to seat 23B, where a woman sat guarding a wooden box that somehow felt more significant than cargo, more important than luggage, more dangerous than whatever secrets people usually carry on late-night buses. I'd been driving long enough to know that some deliveries change you. Some packages carry more than their contents. Some requests, once accepted, alter the course of everything that comes after. And as the lights of Phoenix faded in my mirrors and the long stretch toward Flagstaff opened up ahead, I realized I'd already made my choice. Whatever was in that box, wherever it needed to go, I was going to make sure it got there, even if it killed me. The desert doesn't sleep, it just dims its lights and changes shifts. By 1:30 a.m., we're deep into Arizona's midsection, where the landscape looks like God got tired halfway through creating it and decided to just leave everything rough and unfinished. Saguaro cacti stand like ancient sentinels in the moonlight, their arms raised in permanent surrender to the vastness. I've driven this stretch so many times I could do it blindfolded, which is good because my attention keeps wandering to the rearview mirror. She hasn't moved much in the past hour, still holding that box, still staring out the window. But there's something hypnotic about her stillness, like she's a statue that might come to life if I stop watching. The other passengers have settled into the rhythm of highway travel. The soldier has finally fallen asleep, his head pressed against the window, probably dreaming about places that make this desert look welcoming. The college kids crashed about 20 minutes ago, sprawled across their seats like they own the world. The elderly woman is knitting something, a scarf, maybe, or a prayer made of yarn. But the woman with the box, she's awake in a way that suggests sleep is a luxury she can't afford right now. I've seen grief before. Hell, I've lived it. My ex-wife used to say I collected broken people like some guys collect baseball cards, always trying to fix what couldn't be fixed, always thinking the next sad story would be the one that finally made sense of my own damage. She wasn't wrong. There's something about being the driver that makes you feel responsible for everyone's journey, not just their destination. That's probably why I agreed to help, or why I will agree, because we both know that's where this is heading. In 23 years of driving, I've learned to read people like road signs, and everything about her says this isn't just a favor. This is a mission. Maybe the kind of mission that makes the difference between someone living with their choices and living despite them. The box hasn't moved from her lap. Every few minutes, she adjusts her grip, like she's afraid it might slip away, or like she's afraid she might hold it too tight. From this distance, I can't make out any details, but I can see it's well made, expensive maybe, the kind of thing you pass down through generations, or the kind of thing that holds what's left when generations end. We pass a truck stop, its neon signs advertising coffee and diesel and companionship for the lonely. A few big rigs are parked in the shadows, their drivers catching regulation sleep or pushing through the night with chemical assistance. I used to envy the truckers. They travel alone, make their own schedules, don't have to deal with passengers and their baggage, literal and otherwise. Now I'm not so sure. There's something to be said for bearing witness to human moments, even the broken ones. Especially the broken ones. The woman shifts in her seat, and for a moment I think she's going to come forward again, maybe change her mind about the whole thing. But she just adjusts the box and returns to her window meditation. Whatever she's watching out there, it's not the desert. She's watching something that happened before she got on this bus, something that put the box in her hands and her on this particular route at this particular hour. I think about my own late-night journeys, the times I've been the passenger instead of the driver. After the divorce, I spent a lot of nights driving aimlessly, not because I needed to get anywhere, but because movement felt like progress. Like if I just kept moving, maybe I'd outrun whatever was chasing me. Spoiler alert, you can't. Whatever's chasing you has your exact address, knows your schedule, and will be waiting when you finally stop running. But sometimes, if you're lucky, someone else's journey intersects with yours in a way that changes both stories. Sometimes carrying someone else's burden helps you understand the weight of your own. The highway curves slightly and the headlights sweep across a roadside memorial, one of those white crosses with plastic flowers and a name I can't read from this distance. Someone's story ended here, probably suddenly, probably unfairly. Someone else had to figure out what to do with what was left behind. Maybe that's what the box is, what's left behind. Maybe that's what I'm signing up for, being the one who carries forward what someone else couldn't carry anymore. Son of a bitch. Now I'm getting philosophical. This is what happens when you drive the night shift too long. The darkness gets into your head, makes you see meaning in every shadow, significance in every silence. Next thing you know, you're the guy who thinks every passenger is carrying some profound truth about the human condition. But then I catch her reflection in the window, and I see her lips moving slightly, like she's having a conversation with someone who isn't there. Or maybe she's rehearsing what she's going to say when she hands over that box. Either way, it's clear this isn't just about delivery, it's about transfer. Passing something from one set of hands to another, one story to another, one life to another. The thing about being a bus driver is that you become part of people's stories without meaning to. You're the one who was there when they decided to leave, when they chose a new direction, when they finally got the courage to go back and face whatever they'd been running from. You're a supporting character in dramas you'll never fully understand, carrying people toward endings you'll never know. Sometimes that feels like a privilege, sometimes it feels like a burden. Tonight, watching this woman hold that box like it contains everything that matters and nothing that can save her, it feels like both. We're approaching the halfway point to Flagstaff now, and I find myself driving slightly slower than usual, like I can postpone whatever's coming by stretching out the journey. But time moves forward whether you want it to or not, miles accumulate whether you count them or not, and destinations arrive whether you're ready or not. The radio crackles with distant chatter from other drivers, other routes, other late-night pilgrimages across America's sleeping body. Dispatcher calling out schedule updates, drivers reporting clear roads or weather delays, the mundane poetry of people moving through darkness toward whatever dawn is waiting for them. I think about the address she mentioned, written on the bottom of the box. Who lives there? What are they expecting? Or not expecting? Are they awake right now, waiting for something they don't know is coming, or are they sleeping peacefully, unaware that their world is about to change? And what am I going to do when she gets off in Flagstaff? Take the box like she asked? Drive to whatever address is written there and knock on someone's door at, 3 in the morning? 4? Hand over a wooden box and say, sorry to bother you, but a woman on my bus asked me to deliver this? Or am I going to do what I should do, which is tell her I can't help, that I'm just a bus driver, not a messenger service, not a priest, not a keeper of other people's secrets? You know what I'm going to do. I've known since she asked. I'm going to take the box. You see, there are moments in life when someone asks you to carry something and you have a choice. You can say no, keep your hands clean, stick to your job description, and let whatever happens happen without your involvement. Or you can say yes and accept that you're now part of something larger than yourself, something that might change you in ways you can't predict. Most people say no. It's safer, smarter, more reasonable. But every once in a while you meet someone whose need is so quiet, so profound, that saying no would be like turning your back on gravity or refusing to breathe. Are you still riding with me through these dark hours? Because let me tell you something. This is when the real journey begins. Not when you board the bus or buy your ticket, but when you decide to trust a stranger with something that matters. If you're curious about where these roads lead, about what happens when ordinary people make extraordinary choices, then stick around. Hit that subscribe button because I have a feeling this story is just getting started, and I'd be grateful for the company. The mile markers tick by like a countdown to something inevitable. Flagstaff grows closer with each passing minute, and with it, the moment when I'll have to decide who I am, just a driver or someone willing to carry more than passengers. Flagstaff appears like a mirage of lights in the darkness, mountain-framed and cold even in late spring. The bus station sits on the edge of downtown, a tired building that's seen better decades, but still serves its purpose of connecting people to places they'd rather be. It's 3:17 a.m. when we pull into the depot. Most passengers stay seated. Flagstaff is a quick stop, not a destination for anyone on this run. The college kids are still unconscious. The soldier stirs but doesn't wake, and the elderly woman has dozed off with her knitting in her lap. But the woman with the box is already standing. She moves down the aisle with the same careful grace she's maintained all night, the box cradled against her chest like a sleeping child. When she reaches my seat, she stops, and I can see her face clearly for the first time in hours. Her eyes are red-rimmed but dry, like she's cried out everything she had to cry, and now there's only resolution left. "This is my stop," she says quietly. I set the parking brake and turn to face her fully. "About that favor?" She reaches into her coat pocket and pulls out a white envelope, thick with cash. "This should cover gas and your time. The address is on the bottom of the box. Don't read what's inside until after you've delivered it, okay? Just make sure it gets there." Or, before I can ask any questions, she places the box on the small shelf next to my seat. The wood is smooth under my hands, worn soft by years of handling. It's heavier than I expected, dense with whatever weight it carries beyond the physical. "Ma'am, I don't even know your name." "You don't need to," she says, and there's something final in her voice. "Just promise me you'll see this through." "I promise." She nods once, turns, and walks off the bus without looking back. Through the windshield, I watch her disappear into the pre-dawn darkness of Flagstaff, leaving behind only questions and a wooden box that suddenly feels like the most important cargo I've ever carried. I should get back on schedule. I should stow the box safely and focus on the remaining passengers, the remaining miles, the routine that's kept me sane for 23 years. Instead, I find myself staring at this simple wooden container, feeling its weight in my hands like a responsibility I never asked for but can't refuse. The box is maybe 8 inches long, 6 wide, 4 deep, The wood is dark, polished to a soft gleam that catches the overhead lights. No visible hinges, no obvious latch, but there's a thin seam running around the perimeter that suggests it opens somehow. And there, carved into the bottom in small, precise letters, 1247 Maple Street, Phoenix, AZ. Phoenix. That's a 4-hour detour from my route, maybe 5 with traffic. I'd have to call in, explain the delay, probably catch hell from dispatch. But looking at this address, carved into the wood like a prayer or a curse, I know I'm going to make that drive. The other passengers are settling back into travel mode as I pull out of Flagstaff. The interstate stretches ahead, dark and familiar, but everything feels different now. I'm no longer just driving a route. I'm carrying a mission, a purpose that someone else's desperation has carved out of an ordinary night. Miles pass. 1 hour becomes 2. The eastern horizon starts to show the faintest hint of dawn, that gray moment when night admits defeat, but day hasn't quite declared victory. And with each mile, the box seems to grow heavier, more present, more demanding of my attention. By the time I reach the outskirts of Phoenix, my scheduled passengers have all disembarked at their planned stops. The bus is empty except for me and the box, and the silence feels loaded with possibility. I could drive straight to the depot, clock out, go home, and pretend this never happened. Or I could make a detour that might change everything. 1247. Maple Street turns out to be in an older neighborhood, the kind where the houses were built when people expected to live in them for life. Modest homes with front porches and established trees, the American dream scaled to human proportions. Number 1247 is a pale blue Craftsman with white trim, a small garden, and a porch light that's still burning despite the early hour. I park the bus at the corner, no point in waking the entire neighborhood with diesel engine noise, and walk to the house carrying the box. My hands are trembling slightly, and I'm not sure if it's from caffeine or anticipation or something deeper. The porch creaks under my feet. There's a doorbell, but at 5:30 in the morning, knocking seems more appropriate. I tap gently, then wait. Tap again, slightly louder. Footsteps inside, slow and careful. A porch light comes on, and I hear the soft sound of someone checking through a peephole. "Who is it?" A woman's voice, elderly, cautious. "Ma'am, I'm sorry to bother you so early. I'm a bus driver, and someone asked me to deliver something to this address." A pause. Then locks turning, multiple locks, and the door opens to reveal a woman in her 70s wearing a bathrobe and slippers. Her hair is silver white and braided for sleep, but her eyes are sharp and alert. "A delivery? At this hour?" I hold up the box. "A woman on my bus last night asked me to bring this here. She said it was important." The woman's expression changes the moment she sees the box. Her hand flies to her throat and she takes a step backward. "Oh my God," she whispers. Where did you get this?" "From a passenger. She got off in Flagstaff and asked me to make sure it reached this address." The woman's eyes fill with tears, but she reaches out with steady hands to take the box. The moment she touches it, something shifts in her face. Recognition, relief, maybe sorrow. "Thank you," she says. "You have no idea what this means." "Ma'am, she asked me not to open it until after I delivered it. Would it be okay if I—" She nods. "Yes. Yes, you should know what you carried." We sit on her porch steps as dawn breaks over Phoenix, and I carefully examine the box for an opening mechanism. There, a small wooden slide that's so seamlessly integrated it's almost invisible. When I move it, the top of the box lifts away like a jewelry box, revealing red velvet lining and contents that make my breath catch. Letters. Dozens of them, tied with ribbon and yellowed with age. Photographs, some in black and white, some in the faded colors of decades past. A small jewelry box containing a wedding ring and what looks like an engagement ring. And underneath it all, a modern USB drive, and a note written in careful handwriting. The elderly woman picks up one of the photographs. A wedding picture from what looks like the 1950s. A young couple, radiant with joy, staring into a future they thought they could predict. "That's my daughter," she says quietly. "On her wedding day, 35 years ago." She opens the note and reads, silently, tears streaming down her face. Then she looks up at me. "My daughter disappeared 20 years ago. Just vanished one day. We never knew if she was alive or dead, never knew what happened. The police said she probably ran away, started a new life somewhere. We never stopped hoping, never stopped wondering." She holds up the USB drive. "This has a video message. She's been living in Seattle all these years. She found out her husband was having an affair with my other daughter, her sister. She couldn't face us, couldn't bear to destroy our family with the truth. So she just left. The morning light is getting stronger, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. Birds are starting to sing in the old trees that line the street. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barks, and the world is waking up to another day. She says she's sick," the woman continues. "Cancer. She wanted us to have these things, wanted us to know she never stopped loving us, even though she couldn't come home." I think about the woman on the bus, the way she held that box, the weight she carried. Not just the weight of the box itself, but the weight of 20 years of separation, 20 years of choosing exile over confrontation, love over truth. Is there anything I can do? I ask. She wipes her eyes and manages a smile. You already did it. You brought her home. I should leave. I should walk back to my bus, drive to the depot, file my report, and pretend that delivering mysterious packages to crying grandmothers is just part of the job description. But something keeps me seated on these porch steps, watching this woman named Helen. She told me her name somewhere between the tears and the revelations, as she carefully examines each item in the box like she's handling sacred relics. The USB drive sits between us like a loaded gun. She says there's more, Helen whispers, holding the note. There's more she needs to tell us, but she wanted to make sure we got this first. She's coming home. My mouth goes dry. When? Today. She's driving down from Seattle. Should be here by evening. 20 years of absence, ending in 12 hours. 20 years of wondering, of hoping, of grieving someone who wasn't dead but might as well have been. And now I'm sitting in the middle of it. A bus driver who thought he was just delivering a package but somehow became the herald of a family resurrection. Helen picks up one of the letters, studies the faded envelope. These are letters she wrote but never sent. One for every Christmas, every birthday, every anniversary of the day she left. Look at this one. It's addressed to her father. He died 8 years ago, never knowing what happened to her. The weight of it hits me like a physical blow. Her father died not knowing if his daughter was alive or dead, not knowing why she left, not knowing that she loved him enough to write letters she'd never send. And her daughter, Christ, her daughter lived with that knowledge every day for 8 years. Helen, I say carefully, what about your other daughter? The one who was involved with the husband? Her face hardens. Margaret. She still lives here in Phoenix, about 10 minutes away. She's been the good daughter all these years, taking care of us, visiting every week, bringing the grandchildren by, never mentioning Sarah's name unless we brought her up first. Does she know Sarah's coming back? Not yet. Helen's voice carries the weight of a decision she's not ready to make. Sarah asked me to tell her, to prepare her. But how do you prepare someone for the return of the sister whose life they helped destroy? I lean back against the porch railing, feeling the morning sun on my face. In a few hours, I'll be officially off duty, but right now I feel more responsible for the outcome of this situation than I've ever felt for getting passengers safely to their destinations. What are you going to do? Helen is quiet for a long time, sorting through photographs of grandchildren she's never met, birthday parties she wasn't invited to, Christmases that happened without her. When she finally speaks, her voice is steady. I'm going to call Margaret. I'm going to ask her to come over for lunch, and I'm going to show her what you brought me. And then we're going to wait for Sarah to come home. The simplicity of it is terrifying. No dramatic confrontations, no elaborate plans for revenge or reconciliation, just a family preparing to face the truth after 20 years of living without it. But I can see the calculation in Helen's eyes, the careful consideration of variables I can only guess at. Margaret has children now. Sarah's note mentioned nephews and nieces she's never met. Margaret has a life built on the foundation of her sister's absence. What happens to that life when the absent sister returns with proof of betrayal? Helen, what if Margaret doesn't want Sarah to come back? She looks at me with the kind of gaze that comes from 7 decades of experience, including 2 decades of missing a daughter. Then Margaret will have to live with that choice, just like Sarah has had to live with hers. The church bells in the distance chime 7 times. Somewhere in this city, Margaret is probably getting her children ready for school, making coffee, living the life of someone who believes her secrets are buried safely in the past. In a few hours, she'll get a phone call that changes everything. And somewhere on Interstate 17, a woman named Sarah is driving toward a confrontation 20 years in the making, carrying whatever hope or fear has finally given her the courage to come home. I think about my own family, my own secrets, my own carefully constructed distance from the people who knew me before I became someone else. The ex-wife who stopped calling years ago, the brother I haven't spoken to since our father's funeral, the friends I let fade away because maintaining relationships felt like work I wasn't qualified for. What would it take for me to drive back to those relationships? What kind of catalyst would be required to make me face the conversations I've been avoiding? The apologies I owe? The love I've been too proud or too scared to acknowledge? Maybe it takes a terminal diagnosis. Maybe it takes 20 years of exile to realize that running away from pain doesn't eliminate it. It just relocates it, spreads it out over time, makes it a chronic condition instead of an acute injury. I should go, I tell Helen, but I don't move. You should, she agrees. But you won't, will you? She's right. I can't leave now. Not when I've become part of this story, not when I've seen the weight of that wooden box and understand what it represents. I'm invested now, whether I want to be or not. What time did you say she'd be here? Around 6 this evening. I check my watch. 11 hours. 11 hours for Margaret to process 20 years of deception. 11 hours for Helen to prepare for the return of a daughter she thought she might never see again. 11 hours for me to figure out what role, if any, I should play in whatever comes next. Helen, would it help if I stayed? I mean, I don't know what I could do, but... She reaches over and pats my hand, And in that gesture, I feel something I haven't felt in years, the sense of being needed for something that matters. I think, she says slowly, that you were meant to be here. I think Sarah knew exactly what she was doing when she asked you to deliver that box. Maybe she's right. Maybe none of this is coincidence. Maybe 23 years of driving night routes through America's heartland was just preparation for this moment, this delivery, this opportunity to be present when someone's long exile finally ends. Or maybe I'm just a bus driver who got in over his head and doesn't know how to get out. Either way, I'm staying. Margaret arrived at 12:30, carrying a casserole dish and wearing the expression of someone who thinks they're coming to a normal family lunch. She's younger than Sarah by about 5 years, with the same bone structure but a softer edge, like life has been kinder to her choices. I watched from the kitchen window as Helen showed her the box, the letters, the photographs. I watched Margaret's face cycle through confusion, recognition, horror, and finally, something that looked like relief mixed with terror. The casserole dish ended up on the floor, green bean fragments scattered across Helen's kitchen linoleum like evidence of a small explosion. She knows, Margaret whispered, and Helen nodded. She's known for 20 years. Oh God, what do I do? That was the question hanging in the air when Helen called me back into the living room. Margaret looked at me like I was either her salvation or her executioner, and I realized that, in some ways, I was both. You're the bus driver, she said. It wasn't a question. Yes, ma'am. Was she... How did she look when you saw her? I thought about how to answer that. How do you describe someone carrying 20 years of exile? How do you explain the particular weight of chosen loneliness? She looked like someone who'd made a hard decision and was finally ready to live with the consequences. Margaret laughed, but it came out broken. The consequences. Do you know what the consequences are going to be for me, for my children? My husband doesn't even know about what happened back then. I never told him. How do I explain that my sister disappeared because I was sleeping with her husband? Maybe, I said carefully. You start by explaining it to yourself. The hours crawled by. Margaret called her husband, told him she wouldn't be home for dinner. Helen made coffee. None of us drank. I sat in a chair by the window, supposedly reading a magazine, but actually serving as witness to a family preparing for its own reckoning. At 4:30, Margaret's phone buzzed with a text from her oldest son, asking when she'd be home. She stared at the message for a long time before putting the phone away without responding. I keep thinking about Christmas, she said to no one in particular. Every Christmas for 20 years, we've set an extra place at the table. Mom insists on it. In case Sarah comes home, she always says. And every year I felt like such a fraud, sitting there knowing she wasn't coming because of what I did. Helen reached over and took her hand. She's coming now. But what if she hates me? What if she can't forgive me? What if I've destroyed my family twice, once 20 years ago and again today? I found myself thinking about forgiveness, about the weight of carrying someone else's judgment for 2 decades. Sarah had chosen exile over confrontation, silence over accusation. In some ways, that was its own form of forgiveness. Or maybe it was the opposite, a punishment so complete it didn't require ongoing administration. At 5:45, a blue Honda Civic pulled into the driveway. We all saw it at the same time, and the air in the living room seemed to crystallize. Through the window, I could see a woman getting out of the car, moving slowly, like someone approaching either salvation or execution. Sarah looked older than her 48 years, worn down by distance and time and whatever illness had finally brought her home. But she moved with the same careful grace I remembered from the bus, the same sense of carrying something precious and fragile. She stood at the end of the driveway for a moment looking at the house, and I wondered what she was seeing. The home she'd left behind? The life she might have had? The people she'd protected by staying away? Helen stood up, smoothed her dress, and walked to the door. Margaret remained frozen on the couch, tears streaming down her face. I stayed by the window, suddenly aware that I was about to witness something I had no right to see but couldn't look away from. The door opened. Helen stepped onto the porch. Sarah looked up and saw her mother for the first time in 20 years. They stood there for what felt like an eternity, measuring the distance between them, calculating the cost of closing it. Then Sarah took a step forward, and Helen took a step forward, and suddenly they were in each other's arms, crying in the way that only people who've been holding their breath for decades can cry. I looked away then, gave them that moment of privacy. When I looked back, they were walking toward the house together, Helen's arm around Sarah's waist, supporting her weight. The front door opened, and Sarah stepped into the living room. Her eyes found Margaret immediately, and for a moment the sisters just stared at each other across 20 years of silence. "Hello, Maggie," Sarah said softly. Margaret stood up, unsteady on her feet. "Sarah, I'm so sorry. I'm so fucking sorry." "I know," Sarah said. "I've known for 20 years. And then Margaret was moving across the room, and Sarah was meeting her halfway, and they were holding each other and crying and talking all at once, words spilling out like water through a broken dam. I slipped out the back door then, walked around to the front of the house where my bus waited at the corner. The late afternoon sun painted the street in golden light, and somewhere in the distance I could hear children playing, the sound of dinner preparations, the ordinary symphony of family life continuing its eternal rhythm. My phone buzzed with a message from dispatch, asking about my delay. I typed back a quick response about mechanical issues, bought myself a few more hours before I'd have to explain why a routine run had turned into something else entirely. But I didn't drive away. Not yet. At 7:30, Helen came out to find me sitting on the bus steps. "She's staying for dinner," she said. "First family dinner in 20 years. How's it going?" "Hard, honest, necessary." She sat down beside me. "Margaret's husband is coming over after work." She called him, told him everything. "He's processing." "And Sarah?" Helen smiled, and for the first time since I'd met her, it was a smile without shadows. "She's home." We sat in comfortable silence, watching the street settle into evening. A few houses down, someone was grilling burgers. A dog barked. Kids rode bicycles in wide, aimless circles. "You know," Helen said, "she asked about you. Sarah did. She wanted to know if you were okay, if taking care of that delivery had caused you any trouble." "What did you tell her?" "I told her you were exactly who she needed you to be." 3 weeks later, I was reading the Phoenix Republic over coffee at a truck stop outside Tucson when I saw the obituary. Sarah Margaret Chen, age 48, passed away peacefully at home surrounded by family. In lieu of flowers, the family requested donations to the American Cancer Society. The article was brief, but it mentioned that she was survived by her mother, her sister, 2 nephews, and a niece. It said she had worked as a librarian in Seattle and loved reading mystery novels. It said she would be remembered for her kindness and her quiet strength. It didn't mention the 20 years of exile. It didn't mention the wooden box or the letters she'd written but never sent. It didn't mention the bus driver who'd carried her final message across the desert. But I knew. I knew that her last 3 weeks had been spent at family dinners and bedtime stories with nieces and nephews who'd never known they had an aunt. I knew that she'd died forgiven and forgiving, surrounded by people who loved her enough to let 20 years of pain transform into 20 years of grace. The highway stretches out ahead of me tonight, same as always. Another route. Another collection of passengers, carrying their own secrets and sorrows and hopes toward destinations they may or may not be ready for. In seat 23B, a young man sleeps with his head against the window, probably dreaming of whatever waits for him at the end of his journey. I don't know his story yet. Maybe I never will, but I'm here if he needs someone to carry something that's too heavy to carry alone. Because that's what we do, those of us who work the night shift on America's highways. We bear witness. We carry what needs carrying. We deliver what needs delivering. And sometimes, if we're very lucky, we get to be present when someone finds their way home. The road rolls on, endless and patient, connecting every story to every other story, every ending to every beginning. And somewhere out there in the darkness, another passenger is climbing aboard another bus, carrying another wooden box, trusting another stranger with another piece of their heart. I'll be ready when they find me. Thank you for traveling with me tonight. Every comment you leave is like a light in a house along the roadside, reminding me that we're not alone in the darkness. If you want to know where the road takes me next, hit that subscribe button. The journey continues, and I'd be grateful for your company.